What I'd like to do is I'd like to play a little bit of the score right now. And I think it'd be a good place to just kind of start with the title track, Blood in Them Hills. One thing I love about this piece is it's just, it's something that I would anticipate just sets the tone for the film. And I don't know the order, but also just the power in the low end of the orchestra is really just kind of pushes on my chest, which is what you want.
That's precisely. It's number one, and it literally is there to set the tone. And it appears in the movie very, very briefly. And a lot of scores, you'll be surprised. Well, most probably know this, but not every second of the score music typically makes it in the score. Oh, sorry, in the movie.
Right.
And so I really wanted this to be the title track because it does set the tone for the film. Like, a typical Western will open up with, a twang and then this beautiful orchestra and take you through, these vistascapes. But I really wanted to say, no, this is actually not what you think it is. And so, I really paid special attention to this to be very much like, oh, this is a horror movie. And that cue really, I think, sets the expectations. Very simple, very, driving sound, but something that just puts people completely on their heads and says, what am I in for? It piques their interest. That's the goal anyway.
Well, and I think you got that. But what people may not know, and I didn't, even after I had scored a couple of films, I didn't know this until I came across a particular film. I read the script and I was even sent the video of it. And I'm like, I don't know if this is a horror film, a comedy, or a drama. I can't tell. It was just, It was so dry that I thought it could be any of these. So I actually had to call the filmmaker and say, how do you want me to approach this? Because I could turn it into this, this, or this. And we, as composers, we do have so much power to control the feel of a film. I mean, obviously, a director's not going to, if it's a comedy and you put in a horror score, they're not going to let that through. But we have the ability to shape the feeling of the film, regardless of the dialogue, regardless of the visual. We could really make it into anything we wanted.
100%. Yep. And that's precisely why I was like, I'm going to just go straight for the jugular on this one. I'm going to tell people this is what you're listening to. And so the next track after this is the prologue, which is, again, just sort of background in the film, just sort of educating people on, why they're here, what's going on, and setting up the rest of the film. And again, it's a horror element, but it's a lot slower because the prologue, I think, is like 7 minutes long. And so, I just wanted straight off the bat for people to listen and go, okay, I think I know what I'm getting into here.
Well, I think that's a great cue to check it out. Here's a little bit of prologue. One thing I absolutely love is just how big and rich the cellos sound. And I don't know if you're using a double bass on that, but it's huge.
Yeah, and with a lot of underpinning EQ, just to bring out the resonances in that low end. And yeah, precisely. I wanted, one instrument, and a lot of those double basses have so much energy in the low that you don't always hear. You feel, but I wanted to hear it, and so yeah, that's exactly what I did.
Yeah, I love that. I'm gonna forward my way through the song a little bit, right around the 3-minute mark, and check out the other end. But what we've heard so far, these are the elements that I'm talking about. That high hanging string over the top. You've got a little bit of the flute, but not the traditional flute you would hear. You've got the rumble of the cello pushing down on your chest. I mean, this is beautiful underscore.
Thank you.
This is very reminiscent of not like a direct copy or anything of the score, but it has that same intensity as like the score to The Shining, where you get the creepiness of there's like voices in there that aren't voices, but you feel like there's people there. It's amazing.
Yep. That's a compliment for sure. I mean, The Shining is one of my favorite. Bela Bartok, I mean, I could talk for hours, but just an amazing, like, rich soundtrack that doesn't need to be too loud, but it just evokes fear and it evokes the right things that you want the audience to feel. So yeah. And that, that piece goes on and it gets louder and obviously underpins what's happening on screen. Very violent scene. But yes, that was the goal, is to bring him in slowly and again, hit him over the head with those tones that we heard in the previous track.
Now, I don't want you to give away your secret, so you don't have to answer this question if you don't want to. But are those voices, or is that a patch that we're hearing there?
It's a combination, actually. There is some high-pitched sort of whiny noises that were like, ooh, so ooh, I guess oohs, right? I won't sing it because I can't sing. But yeah, it was a lot of oohs that I recorded and then just pitched down and then also just heavily enhanced with effects just to give it that... Because typically what you do is you have a singer sing in the right key, on key,
right?
But then if you just change a semitone, one or two, they're out of key, but it becomes scary, right? And that's what a lot of Bela Bartok would do, is do these atonal sounds. And I'm glad you mentioned that. If that evoked that for you, that's what I was 100% what I was going for, is this just uneasy, unworldly sound. And that can be done with, taking something that was quite beautiful when we recorded it, pitch it down and just destroy it. A couple of semitones, then you've got this awful score that's all you want to do is like hide under a blanket.
Exactly, because even the slightest bit of dissonance, people say all the time, like, oh, I don't really know anything about music, I just know what I like. I'm like, yes, exactly. That's what's important, is that you know what you like, you know what makes you feel good, and you know what makes you feel not good. And the slightest bit of dissonance, a casual listener may not be able to describe. They'll just go, I don't like that. That does not make me feel good, or it makes me feel uncomfortable.
Yep.
And it's that simple.
100%. Yep.
I want to play a little bit of a piece that I really like and sets a completely different tone. But I want to play a little bit of this to show a little bit of the variety in the score and the patience of it. This is called Whiskey Peddler. I love those background higher pitched strings. It sounds like, is that a mandolin?
No, that is a flamenco guitar
Oh,
that we recorded, and the strings are they are from a traditional sort of classical string library. Lots of cello, lots of first violin, second violins, just to give it that Hollywood sort of sweeping sound. But it's a very sparse song, and it's actually Whiskey Peddler refers to Joe Good, who played by Kellen again, the main protagonist. He's a bit of a rough and ready guy that's had a history in smuggling whiskey across the West, and so that's where the cue gets its name from. The scene of the film is him having dialogue with a lady that he's befriended. I won't give too much more away there, but it was really just to supplement kind of a nice conversation in a bedroom. It didn't need to be anything crazy, but I wanted some sort of romantic ties to it, especially after what you've just heard with this like absolute, hellscape of sound. Just to, again, give the audience some breath and some breathing room and move more into the more traditional Western elements. And that's what I tried to do in that cue.
yeah. And that's the thing about using an instrument like the cello is that it can be a warm instrument or it can be a cold instrument. And in this case, I feel it starts off as cold, but it heads into a more warmer territory. Is that just my imagination?
No, that's exactly, again, you've nailed kind of the goal here, which is to evoke like this guy that's in this situation. And, the reality is he's kind of a cold guy. And so the music had to evoke this sort of romanticism, but it also had to show, who this person was. I spoke earlier about, trying to tell more character backstory in the music. And that's exactly what I tried again to do with this is sort of show you who this guy really is. Yes, it's romantic. You're looking at this very romantic scene, but at the same time, this guy is not the nicest person. He's had a bit of a cold history. And so that's precisely why I think that the cello in that really came through and sort of told that story.
I like that I'm getting the point that you're trying to make without having the context of the film.
Yeah. Yeah. And I never told you this, there's no notes exchanged before.
Exactly.
This is just you listening. So yeah, when you see the film, I think you'll really, it will nail it home for you. You'll be okay. That's exactly what he's trying to evoke here.
Yeah, and the beauty of underscore music, for those who aren't familiar with it, is a lot of times it's patient. It's really tone setting. Again, meant to be more felt and enhance what we're seeing on the screen than specifically heard like a theme or, like a battle sequence or something like that. And so as a composer, sometimes it can be difficult to write, especially if it's a particularly long scene. Like, I want to make this interesting, but I can't make it too interesting. It can be a really fine line sometimes.
It does. And this is a cue that was really, again, just to underpin, like it wasn't designed to get in the way. And really, it's a very simple motif played on the guitar with, accompanied strings just to make it fuller. Mm-hmm. And really, that's the type of cue you want in those scenes. You just want to feel something, but you don't necessarily want it to tell the story. And that's precisely why it's very calm. It's a very calm piece of music for that reason.
Exactly. And by the way, for those of you listening, I do have a link to where you can purchase the score in the show notes. So make sure that you're going to that site, checking it out. Give Kevin a rating and a review on it too, because it's a great score. And if you don't like it, then film music might just not be your thing.
Yeah, tell me. If you don't like it, tell me. All feedback is welcome for sure.
Well, I would say though, before you give the feedback, watch it with the film, like experience it the way it was meant to be, because film music is not always enjoyable for people standalone. I love film scores. I love patient music. So for me, it's something I can listen to standalone, but a lot of people, apart from main themes, or if you're licensing popular music, they don't understand it.
Yeah, context is definitely a good key to do. So yeah, I 100% agree. Like listen, especially some of the quieter cues like that one. Mm-hmm. The context of why it's there and what you're supposed to feel is very important. So definitely recommend watching the film with it in.
Yeah, like I can say one of my all-time favorite scores is Gladiator by Hans Zimmer. And I've reviewed it on this show before. The thing I love about it, though, is, I mean, yes, the battle sequences, they're amazing, the energy, the intensity of it all. But, I love just those gentle string pluck songs the just the underscore behind the meeting of different people or what's going on screen, that really the music could be almost anything. But I love what he wrote. I love the feel of it. And that's the kind of stuff that I could listen to honestly all day.
Me too.
Yeah. I think most film composers would probably feel that way.
Yeah, we're a different breed when it comes. we can listen to something for what it is versus, what it was used for. But yes, I totally agree.
Exactly. Now I'm going to move on to a song that we haven't really talked about, but you told me it does have a bit of a story to it. So I'm going to play it first. And then if you would indulge us with a little history, Kevin, this is Joe's Escape.
Tell me your secret. I wanna know. My nights are sleepless. Nowhere to go. And we'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. We'll roll the old chariot along. And we'll owe and gone behind. And we'll be alright if the wind was in our sails. And we'll be alright if the wind was in our sails.
Okay, before you get into the story, my friend, I have to tell you, first of all, that is the perfect voice for this song.
Yeah,
It really is. It's got just that low voice, but with just a little bit of grit in it, not to sound too much like, hey, we had to find a cowboy sounding guy. Like it's perfect. But the way he's almost catatonic is it just creates an atmosphere that I absolutely love.
I thank you, and that's precisely what I went for in this cue. So some background on this particular cue. So in every film that Kellen and I work on, we always like to redo like an old classic. In this case, it was "Roll the Old Chariot Along," which is I think it's called Nelson's Barrel or something. It's an old, like, I think it was an American naval and a British naval song in the late 1700s.
Oh.
And basically it's a song about, whatever you make it, but it was, in this case, I wanted the lyrics of the song, like the first parts of the lyrics I wrote, and then the chorus is what people know it, in terms of the old roll the old chariot along. Mm-hmm. And the whole point of the context is, in the scene, Joe is escaping from a very bad situation, but he's escaping with not a lot of things intact, in terms of his, what he has on his possessions, but also his person. He's lost a lot in this situation. And so that song was one that Kellen and I talked about for quite a while. And can we do something with this? Like, is there a way to remake this in a context of like a Western? Mm-hmm. So I thought long and hard about it. And a lot of the versions of this is very jovial. Like if you listen to, there's a very well-known version of this, and it's very jovial, and it's like a drunk sing-along, right? If thinking, you think, well, that's not a good context for what you're trying to convey in this scene. So what I did is I thought, I would really I really like Leonard Cohen. His voice is just absolutely, what I wanted in this melancholic, like gritty voice. And I said, well, we can't afford Leonard Cohen. So let's do this. Let's find a voice that is similar, but also evokes sort of the West, right? And so I searched long and hard and found this vocalist in Argentina. And what helped so much is he doesn't speak English. And so what I had to do is sort of, and I can't sing, right? I had to sing the song and sort of tell him how I wanted, because I had to convert it into Spanish first of all, and then sing it in English. And so he think about this guy that can't sing but has the perfect voice. And so what he did is he invoked this, this Latin flavor of it, which I absolutely adored, because again, it's the West. You can have this sort of Latin, this Latin articulation trying to sing this like English song or this American song, and it works so perfect. And so I booked him. He recorded. I wrote the instrumentation, wrote a guide vocal, and sent it to him. And we did a couple of different variations of it. But he nailed it. I mean, if you listen to it in full fidelity, you'll hear that grittiness to it.
Yeah.
And it's really it's underpinning a scene that there's no dialogue. It's just images of the desert, images of a guy running away on a horse, and I was like, this is perfect. And so that's the story of Joe's escape / Roll the Old Chariot.
Wow.
It's very different to all the other cues. It's the only one with lyrics and singing in the whole score.
So was it phonetic for him then? He just kind of took your syllables and sang them himself? Wow.
Basically, that's exactly it. I sung it extremely poorly, and basically said, but just do it in your way, right? And so that's why if you hear it, you can hear that English is not his first language. And but I told, because he messaged me and said, I can do this, but I can't do it perfectly in the accent. I said, no. I want that. I want your accent to come through. Like I feel like it adds something to it, and to me it did. It absolutely encapsulated everything that I wanted out of it. And again, it's so melancholic. It's a part of the film that needed that melancholy, but given there was no dialogue, there was nothing to concentrate on except the visuals. It was perfect. It was a perfect opportunity to have some lyrics, and that's what we did.
Well, it was a great choice, because that voice adds so much. And I agree, the accent adds a lot to it too. I don't know how that correlates to the film necessarily, because I haven't seen it yet, but just listening to it on its own, it certainly adds character to the song. So were you like watching him sing it over Zoom, or did he just send you the track?
No, he just sent me. I sent him the instrumental with my guide vocal, and I said, do this in that style, because he where I found him, it was actually referred to me, and so I found he'd done some work for someone else, completely different project, and so because I basically mentioned to a friend of mine, hey, I really like Leonard Cohen, like I want to find someone with the Leonard Cohen voice, and he said to me, oh, I know a guy, but he doesn't sing in English, he sings in Spanish. I said, well, I want English, but let's give it a go. And that's how this happened, is he just gave it his best. I think we did like 3 revisions of it. Like I had to adjust. He sent me the first one back and I adjusted and said, okay, do this way. And again, for someone who can't sing, it was hard to articulate, but I knew it would be worth it, because his voice, even in Spanish, was just the most perfect. Like it encapsulated everything I wanted from it. You could, I actually toyed with the idea of doing just an a cappella, like, because it's such a rich song. I did an a cappella version and I was close to using that, but I actually, worked so hard on the instrumental. I was like, no, we'll use the instrumental too.
Well, and it would be whether it fit the scene or not too, because a cappella in a film doesn't always translate well if it's not an on-screen vocal.
Yeah, and the energy of the scene, it sort of needed something else, and that's precisely why we stuck with the instrumental as well as the song. But for the soundtrack, I did toy with the idea about just putting an a cappella version, but I figured 22 tracks or 23 tracks rather is enough. We didn't right. Well, maybe a special edition down the road.
I will say, when you do the remastered, I've unarchived, cutting room floor footage and all
Mix
that.
Mix it in Atmos or something.
Yes,
I'll dig it out.
But 3 revisions for a language barrier and a vocal performance barrier, with you not being able to sing, to him the way you want it done. That is pretty incredible.
Yeah, and it's a testament to, him as an artist. He managed to take the notes and he knew what I wanted. He knew it needed to be in English. His big concern was, I can't get rid of my accent. And I said, I had to tell him, I don't want you to get rid of your accent. Like sing it in broken English if you have to. But the important thing is your voice.
Yeah.
And that's, you know, because you hear it and there's certain words you can hear he's maybe not articulating them exactly, but that's not the point. The point is I want to hear this melancholic sound, and it doesn't need to be perfect English, and because that actually suits the song. And again, right. I really believe that we pulled that off.
Yeah, I agree. It's the tonality of it.
Right.
Yeah, and he adds such depth to it with that deep voice. Every once in a while, I'll get, on my Instagram, I'll get some video where they're playing the pirate song, that really guttural sound. And I'm like, man, how can a human being actually even hit that note?
Yeah. And again, it's all back to like Leonard Cohen. I mean, if there's a song that he did called You Want It Darker. And I just blew me away. I said, if we could get rights to this song and just use that, it would be perfect for what we need. But obviously, again, independent film does not have the budgets for Leonard Cohen.
Yeah, no doubt.
The next best thing is let's recreate and make something original. And that's what we did. It's an original piece, but it's based upon an old naval song from the late 1700s called Roll the Old Chariot. And it's a reworked version of that, except for the beginning, which is my own lyrics. I wrote those to sort of convey the situation that our character's in.
Yeah, because you have to tailor it to the use.
Yeah. No, you definitely have to modernize it, right? I didn't have to, but it was a good opportunity to make what I would class as the most commercial song on the entire soundtrack, and not because it just has lyrics, but because of the instrumentation on it as well.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, I'm hearing some gentle ahs behind in the background there too.
Yeah, my future son-in-law is the reason for that. So I wanted to have something underneath, and this guy that did the singing does not do harmonies, right? Mm-hmm. So I looked around and said, it needs something, and so as luck would have it, my future son-in-law, who is a singer, and he also did a lot of the ADR in the film, like the narrative ADR, like the screams, the shouts, the stuff you don't see on screen. Mm-hmm. I just got him into the studio and said, hey, can you give me 5 harmonies, in different keys? And we put that together in an evening. Nice. And it worked great. It just supplements it and just gives it that kind of again, that sort of choral vibe that helps bring out the lead vocal even more.
And way to seek the approval of the future father-in-law.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think he's like, well, of course I'll do it for you. I'm dating your daughter. Right, yeah. I'll do whatever you want. So he was very good at doing that.
Smart. I want to ask you about one of the other pieces that you have on here, because you do have another cover on here. And I thought it was kind of interesting because I tend to think of this as a Christmas song. And I've covered it actually on my Christmas album, but you did What Child Is This?
I did, yeah. You know what? I completely forgot. There is another cover, and it is because this movie is actually a Christmas. It's another shoehorned, part of it, but it is set at Christmas time. Oh. So very early on, Kellen really wanted a Christmas song, and I chose that because there is a baby in the film. One of the main characters is a baby, and they're trying to get this baby back to town through all these tribulations. And so I thought, what better song to do than What Child Is This?
Oh, perfect. Yeah, and it's a great version of it too. I'm going to play just a little bit of it here so that the audience can get a taste of it. But I was really curious when I saw that as the title. I'm like, I wonder if this is a cover or if it's just the cue name or what. And as soon as it started, of course, I'm like, oh yeah, this is definitely the song. But you did it in a very unique way. And I thought, man, this is just so beautifully done for underscoring. So let's check out a little bit of What Child Is This? There are so many elements going on here, but let me say first, if that vocal is your future son-in-law, He's very effeminate in this one.
Yeah, no, it's not. It's actually a good friend of mine. I've collaborated with her a lot, Sydney Wolf. She's a local sound engineer here in Phoenix, but also an extremely accomplished musician. And I just, she's a really, really strong singer. And I said, look, I've got this piece I want to do. And I think it's perfect for something you could do. So I sent her, again, the instrumentation, and she just nailed it. I mean, she's a absolute professional when it comes to like what I want and what sort of sound I want. And she does a lot of things very Enya-esque with the layers. Later on the track sort of balloons up and goes into really beautiful harmony, and that's all her with lots of reverb, of course. But I sort of, the notes I gave her were, let's try and put our Enya hat on and give me something that, again, it doesn't need to, you don't need to hear the lyrics. It's all humming, right? It's all singing and humming. And it just worked out fantastically for that scene. And the scene's really, again, another melancholic scene, but it called for something that was something that related to the child, but also something related to the fact that it was Christmas time, lots of snow. And again, it worked out perfectly, and very happy with that piece as well.
Yeah, I love her voice on this. I think I do definitely feel that sort of ethereal Enya type style. So I've got to tell you real quick, my Enya story. So when I was 17 or 18 and I had my wisdom teeth pulled, I had all 4 of them done at the same time. And which, don't ever do that. But they this was back in the days of nitrous oxide. So they would put the mask over your nose and you're breathing in this weird smelling gas. It's not unpleasant, but nothing you would ever say, God, I want to smell that again. It's this really weird combination. So they give me these little headphones. And this is back in the days of the real thin, brittle headphones with the big sponge on them.
Yep.
And they're, they're piping in Enya's Orinoco Flow. And as the nitrous oxide is kicking in, the song becomes like a big ball inside my skull. And it's just kind of floating from one end to the other, like that square on the video screen when you're not playing a tape on your VCR. Mm-hmm. And it's doing that in my brain. And to this day, I cannot hear that song without hearing it that way. And I think great. I don't do drugs, but I understand why people do.
Yeah, I mean, to get trapped in and be soundtracked by Enya that's a trip I need to take, because I mean Enya, I grew up on Enya too, and so this score is very much, it's very eclectic in that sense. Like you've got Enya mixed with like a The Shining mixed with Once Upon a Time in the West. Like there's a lot going on, but I'm glad it made it, because pivotal scene, and it just called for something magical and Christmassy and Enya-y, and that's the perfect song for that.
Oh, absolutely. I couldn't have said it better. And I think you really encapsulated that well into the score, because without you even having said that, I definitely felt that along the way.
That's good to hear.
I want to play one more track. I mean, honestly, Kevin, I could go through this with you song by song, part by part, and really dissect it. But I do want to play one more, because I think this has a little bit of a different feeling. And I'm going to tell you my note before we listen to it this time. The note that I had when I heard it the first time was, I feel the weight of something that I've been carrying for a long time. And the song is called It's Been a Burden.
Got it.
Obviously the gentleness, but I love that you have that string feeling without it sounding like strings.
Yeah, I mean that's all, your traditional orchestra. There's first violins, cello, second violins, and some, bass, quantos or something in there as well. I'm trying to reflect or remember what I put in there, but that scene, very pivotal. It's a very small scene actually, and I ummed and ahed about even putting this cue into the score, but it was another example of like it's important to have these quiet moments, and this is one scene that was very, very peaceful, and it was a conversation between two of the characters. And you mentioned, carrying something for a long time. That's perfectly encapsulating what happens in the scene. This sort of an outpouring of grief for one of the characters and sort of their journey up until that point. And so again, it didn't need to get in the way, right? But the actual scene itself, it called for something. And there's a scene in another favorite of mine, Lord of the Rings, when Aragorn is talking to Eowyn. I think it's Erwin.
Erwin, yeah.
And they're on the bridge, and it's just this beautiful scene between the two of them. And I mean, by no means am I saying my song is like that, but it was the same type of feeling. It was this very close conversation between two people, really outpouring, feelings. And I thought, okay, I need that type of feeling. And so that was why this scene, this cue came out. Is it was to underpin a really quiet, very, very careful scene. Very. I'm trying to think of the right word to describe it, but it needed a very nice break. And actually, after this scene, all hell breaks loose. So it was just kind of this nice moment to just almost wrap a nice, like, calm blanket around the audience, around a fireplace, and just let them experience this beautiful moment until all hell breaks loose. And that's the goal behind this one.
It kind of reminds me, if I'll go back to Gladiator, if you remember the scene after the battle at the beginning when Commodus tells Maximus Lucinda is here.
Yep.
She's been asking about you, and she catches him when he's trying to avoid her. Just that music that's playing in the background, it's different from this, but it has that same kind of feel to it.
That's right. Yeah, and again, it's very, very close scene. And it really, you couldn't, it was either that or nothing, right? I mean, nothing else would have worked. Excuse me. But it needed to just have this, I say it again, like this warm blanket, this cozy blanket wrapped around you. And that was the point of this, is just to almost feel for the character and just help underpin what he was telling the other character.
I kind of equate it to, if you're listening to, let's say, a rock song, you might not necessarily notice the bass guitar, but if the bass guitar wasn't there, it would be unsettling. In a scene like that, it's kind of the same thing. If there's a lot of score in this film, and like you told me, I think before we started recording, the majority of this film does have music in it.
Yeah.
If you're using emptiness as a character or to create a certain feeling, as you would a piece of music or theme, you can't have emptiness where it doesn't belong.
Well, that's it. It's either you have emptiness and you sort of miss an opportunity to like double down on what's happening on screen, or you do something and you double down with what's happening, right? And so that was why this film has a lot of music, because most of it is really just accompanying and helping the narrative on screen. No, very little of it is actually getting in the way. In fact, I think the very first tracks you played are really the only ones, and another one about halfway through, where it really is the prominent piece. The rest of it is just, it's underpinning the narrative. It's helping that narrative flow. And that was the goal, right? If you're not going to have, if you're going to have nothing, or if you can't have nothing and you need something, then make sure it's not getting in the way. And a lot of the score is doing that.
Exactly. And I mean, even without seeing the movie, I can definitely get that feeling from these tracks. I think I'm going to break this up into 2 episodes. So this will air on Saturday and Sunday, because I don't do enough podcasts during the week. So we're going to have a couple more. But I want to ask you one more question before we wrap up. Because you've got a couple of really long pieces on here, 7 minutes, 8 minutes, almost 9 minutes. When you are spotting the film, or maybe the first time that you're watching it after you've talked to the director, and you know that, God, that's a lot of territory to cover for a piece of music, how do you look at approaching that?
I think what really allowed me to create so much of this was the production time. I think I said either at the beginning or maybe before we start recording, this film took about 3.5 years in production, and that's for various reasons. I think again I've already covered, but to kind of recap, it's we had COVID, we had unfortunately a death of one of the producers, and then we had sickness of one of the actors. So we went through the ringer. What that allowed us to do is really take pause and look at the film as an opportunity to tell the best story we could. And I think if we'd had a shorter production run, we would not have had the amount of music we had. So I think the reason we ended up with so much is we just had so much time to sit with it and perfect it, right? And the way to perfect something is, yes, you could just not have music, and there are scenes without music, but if you could add something to get that extra 5-10%, why wouldn't you? And that's kind of what drove it. A lot of this score was written after most of the main motifs and the main scenes were scored, and the leftovers, like I said before, we listened back and we thought, something's missing. There could be something extra here to take it to that 100% or that level 10, and that's what happened. And so again, I think if we'd had a year to do this, or 6 months, which is traditionally what you would be given on a film, you wouldn't have anywhere near the amount. I think the film would be lesser as a result. So I'm glad we had that opportunity to have more time, because I think the story and the film itself is far better for the amount of extra music and sound that we're able to put in it.
Yeah. And I mean, with that effort that you've put into it, going out, getting location sound, having extra time to really analyze the film and say, okay, I think we need more here, or, we need better sound, or we need to focus this differently. I think there's a line between finding that perfection and overthinking every little thing.
Yeah, because you spend 3 months overthinking everything, right? Like if you've got a 6-month production timeline, and remember, I'm one person. Yes, I worked with musicians, and yes, I worked with other people for consultations and things, but I did everything. And so you freak out regularly, actually. There was not a moment in this production schedule, and I wasn't doing it every day for 3.5 years. Let's make sure that's cleared up. It was it was in blocks. So I would spend 3-4 months every day doing something, writing a cue, a demo, recording sound, but not consistently working every day. But those pauses in between. So I'd do a 6-month block, and then we would pause because we're waiting for a pickup or whatever it was. That would give me that time to just go back and after I'd freaked out for a couple of days, I sort of had a chance to look at it and go, okay, how can I, in just a scene level, how can I make this scene better? And then it became a choice of, okay, the scene's great, but how does it work with the scene prior and the next scene? Is it too much? And we did have those conversations. Like, in fact, the very beginning of the movie, the Whiskey Peddler track doesn't play all the way through. It only plays for a very small amount of the scene, but obviously in the score, I wanted to include the entire cue.
Right.
But I had to strip back, and that's the great position I was in. Is I had music for everything, and it became a case of, okay, let's strip back where we can, and that time allowed us to do that as well. Not just use it for writing and recording, but also objectively looking at it and saying, okay, we probably don't need the whole 3-minute cue to play. Let's only play 30 seconds. And that's what happened in a lot of these scenes as well.
Right. And when people go to compare a score, like a released score, to the actual film, and, they're excited to hear it, they go get the soundtrack and they're like, this is different. That's because a lot of times those decisions are made. We might write a cue that's 3 or 4 minutes long, and they only need 20 seconds because that's something changed. Or they're like, you know what? Now that I'm seeing it with the music, I think we only need this little bit. And those decisions are then made, and you only use in the film what you need, but the music still exists.
That's right. And that's what happened with the score. Like, a lot of the music that you'll hear in the score, the album itself, I would say at least a third of it is not in the film because of timing issues. And I wrote like the 7-minute cues that you're seeing in the score here, they're actually 12 minutes. And I had to just edit them down, and I didn't want to subject someone to 12 minutes of audio. So I kept most of it because there's lots of changes and tonal changes even within one cue. So I kept enough where you had those changes, but I didn't want to subject people to just 30 seconds of just a string motif going around. It didn't serve any purpose.
Well, and I think we live in a really good time because we can release extended pieces of music or an extended something that would be beyond the length of a typical CD in the digital age. Whereas before, like even when Gladiator came out and vinyl had really gone away by then, which we're talking about 2000, but I have a copy of Gladiator and it's a double album and it still doesn't have all the music from the that was even in the movie, let alone the stuff that was on the cutting room floor.
I mean, this really could have been a double album, right?
Yeah.
I mean, 23 tracks. I think it's an hour and 15 or hour and 20 minutes of audio.
Mm-hmm.
That's double album territory. And obviously I got lazy with my distributor and just said, just put it on one album. It's fine. But yeah, I mean, traditionally this would be a double album with the length of everything for sure.
And then the challenge with longer pieces is, okay, well now I can't put them in order because I have to fit them on sides of vinyl.
Exactly.
You know,
yeah, it's almost like you've got a break in between the movie where you go get ice cream.
Yeah.
You sort of have to have that play in the middle.
Exactly. Or the really embarrassing thing is when you don't have enough music to fill, but 3 sides and they don't put anything on the 4th side, but just a picture and it's blank.
Yeah.
Like that just drives me
exactly.
nuts.
It's like, oh, you ran out of music, so we're just going to pad it with a booklet or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, my friend, congratulations on the film, on this beautiful score. Like I said, you asked me about it earlier today, how I felt about it, and I fucking love it from beginning to end. There's not a track that you sent me that I'm like, I mean, everything just has an emotion to it, a feel, something I want to know why you wrote this. And I can't wait to put all this music with the film and just check out the film and see how it is.
Yeah, and just as a reminder for the audience, the film is available now on Amazon in US and Canada. Again, we're working on worldwide distribution or availability. But you can stream it on Apple TV. You can stream it on Fandango. There's a few others. If you Google Blood in Them Hills, you'll get links to all of the streaming options. And then the score, the album itself, drops on Saturday, the 22nd. So that will also be available on all major streaming sites, your Spotify's, your Apple Music, your Amazon Music, and 50 others. And that will be worldwide. So anybody who is not in the US or Canada can enjoy the score anywhere in the world. It will be available via your local streaming.
That's awesome. And I do have the iTunes link available. I personally, I hate streaming services. I have a love-hate relationship with them because if you're not on them, people will probably not find you.
Yeah.
But the hope is that they'll find you on there and they'll like you enough as an artist to actually buy your music. And so they'll take that link and they'll go, okay, where can I, really take care of the artist? So I don't typically promote streaming site links, but I will promote iTunes and Amazon because they will allow you to purchase as well as stream from their service.
Purchase. Yeah, I mean, we're in this world now where streaming, but I mean, as an artist, you're spot on. Like the financials make more sense for us when you buy it, and that's just not just from the monetary side, but also the fact that you get to keep it. It's yours. And, you can have it in your library forever and listen to it and not have to worry about paying a subscription to be able to access it. So, yeah, I mean, if you can afford to support and purchase it, that is always welcomed and very much appreciated.
Absolutely. And so those links are in the show notes, guys. But if you want to just check it out first and make sure that you want to buy it, feel free to check it out on your streaming site and then go to the real link and buy it.
And leave a review. Whatever you do,
right.
Leave me a review. I read all of them. Always very, very excited to hear what people say, both good and bad. I respect the fact that people have opinions on these things. But like you said earlier, please watch the film too. Support this film. It's a labor of love. And, this score is born out. This score would not exist without the film Blood in Them Hills. So if you want to listen to the music, please also, take a chance to rent the film and also leave feedback there as well. The filmmakers read everything.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, congratulations, my friend, on another fantastic score. If you think about it, the last time that you were on this show, you were just starting reconstruction in your studio.
I was, yeah. The studio is always being reconstructed.
Sure.
It's never finished. I had to break it to my wife the other day. She's like, but you're done, right? And I said, listen, there's a secret. I'm never done. There's always going to be something. But yeah, the major construction is done and will be done for quite some time. But yeah, now it's a case of collecting more gear, more plugins, more instruments, and it never stops.
Because there's never enough.
There's never enough. There's always a new instrument, Scott. I want to learn the jaw harp or some, weird kind of instrument that I think will sound cool, and I buy it, and then I've got to figure out a place to store it, because that's my biggest problem now. Is I've got all these things everywhere and nowhere to store it. So that'll be the next thing, is a closet somewhere.
Well, now I've got to send you a link to an Aztec death whistle that you can just put in your pocket.
Oh, funny story. Aztec death whistle is all over this film. I have one. Yep, I have one. I also have a sample library that I created and I purchased because it's the sound of this film, right? There's a monster on the loose, bad guys everywhere. You're in the forests of Arizona, and it suited this. So when you watch the film, you will hear lots of Aztec death whistle for sure.
I have a physical death whistle, and I also have, I think it's the Sound Iron library was where I first heard it first. Yeah, Mike Peasley's group over there did an amazing job.
Brilliant stuff. Yeah, I own that library, and I've used that on this film, but I also recorded my own Aztec death whistle. If I could find it, I would actually play it for you now, because I can play that, because all you got to do is blow in it.
Right. Yeah, that's an easy one.
It's an easy one. Yeah.
Well, hang on for me for a second, if you would, my friend. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Guys, check out the links in the show notes. Check out the movie Blood in Them Hills. It's I can't wait to see it myself. I'm sure I'll have great things to say about it. I've worked with Christopher Sheffield before. I know how dedicated and hardworking he is, and how just focused he is on creating the best art he can create. I have great respect for him. And we'll see you guys in the next episode. Don't forget to check out Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, Smoke on the Podcast, my newest Deep Purple show. And then on Wednesdays, of course, your normal HaskinCast podcast. I do have a couple of bonus episodes coming up where I reviewed box sets from Cherry Red Records. So that's on the way. Some interviews I'm working on scheduling as well, all heading towards that big 500th episode. So thank you guys for checking this out. We'll see you in the next one. Cheers.
Cheers.